Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Charles Crawley. This is the Christ Episcopal Church Adult Forum. This is the last in a series of our COVID in our community. We've been doing this for 8 weeks now. It's been very enjoyable and beneficial to have different people from our medical community and our nonprofit community, and we're really happy that we have people from our public educational community here with us this morning, and we'll get to them shortly. So, COVID in our community, what's going on and what can we do about it? So, just a reminder that everyone has been invited to join us in our worship this morning and in our coffee hour, and Libby Slappy has put that information in the chat. So please check that. That will be happening this morning. Coffee hour is at 11. So I'm going to be muting everyone shortly, and then I will unmute Kate and Jillian and Jennifer. And then if you need to ask a question, you'll need to raise your hand, preferably by using the icon at the bottom of the screen under participants. And unmute yourself when you have a question, then mute yourself when you're finished, please. So before we get started introducing our speakers this morning, I would like to ask Eileen Chang Mattis to tell us about the new series that will be starting on September 7th. Eileen, take it away.
Okay. Do we sometimes become religious but not spiritual? Julia Gatta, the author, says that there's a profound longing for something we can scarcely describe, a restless longing for something more, something beyond ourselves, something infinite and absolute. For many American church members, that longing goes unrecognized and underfed. We believe in Jesus, we do good works, we attend church. But where's the link between Sunday morning and a life-giving gospel message? When that connection gets lost, I call that religious but not spiritual. And Gatta points out a remedy, which is ancient, yet very contemporary. In the book, Life in Christ, she shows how Christian spirituality is deeply rooted in the whole gospel message involving birth, death, frailty, forgiveness, hope, justice, and liberation. Better, Christian practices can help us grow in these gospel values. She covers a lot of ground in 207 pages, how the sacraments in scripture, creeds, liturgical year, daily office, all reflect those central human values and shape our formation in them. She includes communal and individual worship. You'll want this book if you want to rediscover the connection between Christian traditions and that deep spiritual pull. You'll want it in time for the adult forum discussion starting September 7th, too. So order it now. Life in Christ. I'll share the ISBNs, etc. in chat. Thanks. Bye, Charles. I'm not going away.
Thank you very much, Eileen. This is the book right here, Life in Christ by Julia Gatta. So please, if you'd like to join us, this will be by Zoom invitation and you will be receiving invitations. So Kate, before I introduce you, I'm going to mute everyone. So give me just a moment before you start speaking, okay? Okay, Kate, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
All right. Welcome, everybody. As Charles has said, we've had a fantastic round of people coming through explaining, taking a closer look at COVID's impact on our community. We've looked at vulnerable communities, our health our health and our health system, our food system. We've looked at how it's impacted our community's attempts to deal with violence among youth, and how that has had to shift. And here we take another closer look at our children's lives and our public schools, a bulwark of our community. We know that schools had to close and scrambled and came up with excellent plans in the spring, and now are having to make plans for the fall. So we welcome big picture school board member Jennifer Borcherding, and our local community school representative Jillian Schulte, who I met when she was first a music teacher at Monroe, and then we both were at Grantwood Elementary together for a while, and now with a different relationship, we're your church and your school. So so looking forward to hearing, what's been working, where are we headed, and welcome to both of you. Jennifer, do you want to start for us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I look forward to kind of getting into and discussing what COVID means as we attempt to address it in public education moving forward. I'm going to start by overviewing our mission statement and then talk about what we're doing to continue to meet our mission through our programming. However, I do want to, before I get into it, I do want to acknowledge that there's really no right choice here. There's no fix that's going to be perfect for everyone. It's an unusual time for sure, and the district is doing things to provide multiple options for families moving forward to meet them at their comfort level. But I would just ask that as you're interacting with people in public, just be cognizant that there are some anxieties there that are very real, and worries that are very real, and just give them a little bit of grace. So with that, I'm going to start with our mission statement. So I apologize, I'm kind of driving my husband's setup here, and there's lots of screens. So I've got my notes over here. All right. So it's the district's mission is to ensure that all learners experience a rigorous and personalized learning experience, so they have a plan, a pathway, and a passion for their future. So what that means when you think about it outside of a mission statement is we're going to meet kids where they're at. We're going to meet them where they're at academically. If that means that they would need an AP course, they would do better with some innovative instruction, or if they have a special education need, or if they're an English language learner, or if they would do better with some project-based learning, if we're providing some opportunities there for job shadows, career technical education. We're trying to provide students with access, equity through access, for opportunities that help them either when they're graduating and they're leaving our public school, they're thinking about higher education, or they're thinking about a career. And they've had exposure and access that should help them make a decision about what they need moving forward. So when COVID happened and we closed down on March 13th, immediately our administrative staff, I could not be more proud of Noreen Bush. I think she's a fantastic superintendent, and she has a really strong administrative team. They leaned in and started developing on March 13th, which was a Friday, about what are we going to do moving forward, not only for the rest of the 2019-2020 school year, but looking towards the 2020-2021 school year. And tried to find ways that we can continue to meet our mission, that we can continue to meet our strategic plan options, and pull together this really inclusive approach to move forward. So the Return to Learn plan that was developed by the Cedar Rapids Community School District has 4 guiding principles. The number 1 priority throughout all of it is health and safety of students and staff. That is our number 1 priority. Our number 2 priority is education. Our number 3 priority is equity of opportunity. And again, that aligns back to our mission. And number 4 is listening to stakeholder feedback to make sure that we are making the best decision for students and staff and our community. So to my knowledge, we're the only district that has, we've done multiple parent surveys. We've done multiple staff surveys. We've had community sessions where it was both in person and Zoom. And some of them had translation provided, not all of them, some of them had translation provided, where we answered questions. We gave an overview of the plan and then we answered questions. And all of those metrics, all of the data that's coming back from the surveys will help us make a finalized plan, will help the district make a finalized plan to move forward. All of those voices are important. So for this fall, the Cedar Rapids Community School District has a couple of options. They all start with family choice. So families will choose whether or not they want to go online or be in person. So something, again, back to our mission that the district did when thinking about equity, the district had an assessment where we looked at how many students did or did not have access, did not have a reliable device at home, and did or did not have access to a hotspot or a Wi-Fi. Already in our strategic plan was providing technology, one-to-one technology for our students, but we compressed that timeline. Last year we got one-to-one for all of our high school students. This year was supposed to be one-to-one for all of our middle school students. And then next year we were going to do one-to-one with all of our elementaries. We compressed the timeline so that this fall, every student, pre-K through 12, will have a district provided device. In pre-K and kindergarten, it'll be an iPad, and 1st through 12, it'll be a Chromebook. We bought 350 hotspots for high school for families that would need access, 350 for middle school for families that need access, and 1,500 hotspots for families that would need access. So any family that makes the choice to go remote, if that works for their family, now has the capability to do so through device and connectivity. The other option is an in-person option. There may be families that need that in-person instruction. Their students are going to do better with that in-person instruction due to either that's just their learning style, or if it's an elementary school, there are sometimes more instructive needs that are just better accomplished in a one-to-one situation. So for the in-person, the district has provided, we will be providing, we've purchased, we haven't handed them out yet, protective equipment, so personal protective equipment for all staff and students. That'll be a mask, a face shield, or both. So that is something we're very aware of. We're trying to hit the 20-to-1 in the classroom at the top, so there would be 20 students to every staff member. Trying very hard to get to that number, but again, that's going to be dependent on how many families select remote learning. That's going to influence our numbers. So, and what's offered is different between elementary, middle, and high school. So I'm going to go into that for just really quickly. So elementary, again, everything starts with parent choice. They're going to choose whether or not they want to be online or in person. They have that 20-to-1 ratio. They have PPE provided by district. Elementary students will go out for recess and have breaks outside where they can take their mask or their visor off. And so that is kind of in person. Now the remote learning for elementary is what's called synchronous learning. That's just a really fancy way of saying live instruction. So the remote learning for elementary is going to be a teacher who has identified that they are uncomfortable or at risk to be in person, so they would like to be a remote instructor. And then they will have a class. They will have classes in elementary where they're doing live instruction with their students over a Google Meet. It'll provide opportunity for some project time for students. It'll very much mirror the in-person classrooms, and that is quite intentional. The district will be asking their professional development teams to kind of make sure that their curriculum is lined up so that if we have to pivot, if we're going into a completely online situation, so that we have the same curriculum being shared with both online and in-person instruction. Okay. Middle school, again, it all starts with parent choice. So parents will choose if they want to be in person, if they want their student in person, or if they want their student virtual. And if their student is in person, they're going to be in an advisory, they'll have an advisory teacher. So in middle school, that's like in high school when students kind of start moving around to different classes. We're not going to do that. The district has said we feel that it's safer for teachers to stay with a class for 3 weeks and then move. So they will also, they'll be like homeroom teachers. Those teachers will also be helping if there's, I have a degree in English, but I probably wouldn't do well teaching algebra, and that wouldn't be good. So, but if I'm the homeroom teacher and I'm an English teacher, I'm going to help those students connect virtually. There'll be a virtual instructor that's coming into the middle room at that time. So I'm gonna coordinate that, and other learning will be coordinated through that homeroom teacher through virtual. Now here's where it gets kind of confusing. There's 2 remote options for middle school and high school. One remote option is called remote learning. And again, that's that synchronous instruction. So that's live instruction. That's, you have a scheduled time, you show up, attendance is taken, you're given content, you've got peer groups that you're working with, you've got projects that you're working with. And then so that's one option. The other option is called the Cedar Rapids Virtual Academy. So Cedar Rapids Virtual Academy, we are the 5th in the entire state to get online certification to be an online instructive agency. And the Virtual Academy is more for, it's developed by our state approved coursework provider, which is called Edgenuity. But this is more of a self-paced course. It's pre-recorded lessons. There is an advisor or a teacher, a Cedar Rapids teacher, that is assigned to students, and they do have check-in times where they meet with their student weekly. This is a good option for middle school and high school students that want to do self-paced work. So they do have to meet a minimum standard of, I have to have this much work done by this time, but they can just plow through all their work for that quarter and get it done inside 2 weeks if they need to. It's a good option for students if they're providing oversight of younger siblings during the day to make sure that they're at their scheduled classes. So that would be very difficult for an older student to be at their class and make sure that their younger brother or sister is also at their class. So if they're taking the Virtual Academy, the attendance is really graded on being able to complete the projects and on assessments. Totally self-paced. So again, for middle school, there's in-person or 2 remote options. And then in high school, again, we're going to start with parent choice and student choice. And that would be either online or in person. And then high school it's an even more confusing situation as far as scheduling. We're going to do A/B blocks. So an A block would be on Monday and Tuesday in person in buildings. And that would be for like last names that start A through L. While that A block is Monday and Tuesday in person in buildings, the B block, or the cohort B, which is names M through Z, would be online. And then they flop. So if you're cohort A, you're live, in person, Monday, Tuesday, remote, Wednesday, Thursday. If you're cohort B, you're remote, Monday, Tuesday, in person, Wednesday, Thursday. So that is a way that we're just trying to, our high schools are really congested and very populated. So we're just really trying to, again, get to that 20-to-1 ratio, and then make sure that when students are going through passing times, that they're not intermingling quite so much. There's a lot more about this, but I'm gonna move through it. You can ask me if you want me to get super granular on the classing and details. I will later. So we've got 2 remote learning options. We've got that remote learning, which is that live option for instruction that'll be aligned and should be mirroring the curriculum that they're having in classes. And that is handled and coordinated through Cedar Rapids teachers. And then we have the virtual academy, which is, again, that self-paced academy where students will be able to watch pre-recorded lessons, take assessments, check in with teachers from time to time. So one thing that I just want to comment on is that this district has been, so our administrative team, our superintendent has been fantastic about taking feedback from multiple agencies, working hand in hand with Lynn County Public Health, taking parent feedback on the survey, taking parent feedback through community sessions, the same with staff, and really trying to provide options that are going to work for all families. It helps us continue to meet our mission because we're continuing to provide equity of access in whatever's that best situation that's going to work for that family or that student. Additionally, we are going to continue to offer food services. 21 of our 31 schools qualify for what's called the Community Eligibility Provision or Program. And it is basically everyone in that school eats for free. All the students, regardless of need. The need in that school of free and reduced lunch is high enough that it falls into this federal designation that everyone in the school eats for free. So regardless if a family is choosing remote or if they're in person, those meals will continue to be provided. They'll be provided at the building that you're attending. You have to go to the building and pick it up, but they still will continue to be provided. We're still looking at support services and partnerships like a Kids on Course, for example. We're trying to see if we can kind of honor what the safety requirements that we have in place and still be able to use those super valuable programs for our students. Even so, something that I think is also noteworthy is that when families are choosing remote instruction, we do have quite a few students that have what's called an individualized education program, or they have a 504 plan. So these are accommodations that are made for students that have either a learning disability that is diagnosed, or they just do a little bit better if they have an accommodation that helps them do the coursework. So even with remote, there will be somebody from district who reaches out to those families and says, how can we make this IEP work remotely? How can we make this 504 work remotely? What kind of supports can we do? If you choose remote, we're going to work with you. We're going to accommodate. We're going to provide equity. We're going to provide access that we can. And finally, just as a board, so the way that this board, that the Cedar Rapids Community School District Board of Education is designed, is we are a board that is, our language is policy. This is all deep management stuff. So we are not involved in day-to-day management. So this is not something we would be voting on. We may vote on masks. Masks will be required in our buildings. Masks or visors, because that would be an extension of dress code, which is policy. So that would be the one thing that we would vote on. But as far as the plan, this is nothing that we vote on. It is something, though, that I think I would endorse. I think it's great, the opportunity that has been provided to students and families to meet them where they're at with this comfort level during this time.
Yes, Jennifer, I have been so impressed with the outreach and the tone as staff have have interacted with staff, as district staff interacts with the school staff and with the public, just very open. And that's a great overview of the whole plan. Jillian, what are we hearing on the ground?
Well, everybody. So I have the privilege, my role is so unique, and I love each and every day of work. What I get to do is support all 5 of our magnet schools as a district magnet coordinator. And then I also get to be on the ground in a school, part-time building base out of Kenwood Leadership Academy. So it's a best of both worlds type of thing. And we are finding that every time there is a problem, there's an opportunity to innovate. And we have been adjusting and readjusting since March, as Jennifer said, when our doors closed. Our doors may have closed, but learning did not stop, and care for our families and our community, that continued as well. So some of the things that I'm sharing today are things that are specific to Kenwood Leadership Academy. And we have a partnership with Christ Episcopal. So some of you on here I recognize from coming into the church and doing our lunch hours of learning around the 7 habits. So it's nice to see your faces here today as well. When our school closure began in March, at Kenwood, we took kind of a 3-prong approach to ensuring that students had access to our leadership theme. And this is, of course, in addition to the district provided packets, and in addition to the weekly check-ins that every school was responsible for doing with families. And reaching out to families gave it may have given us more comfort than it did the families, just knowing that they felt taken care of, they felt safe, and they overwhelmingly believed that our district was taking care of them during that school closure. So our approach at Kenwood during the spring school closure was to ensure that our staff still had time to collaborate and continue our ongoing learning around the 7 habits. We found that during that crisis time, it was critical that we were continuing to grow and to reflect and lean on each other and lean on the 7 habits. So that was one of our approaches. Another approach was we put out almost daily messages on our Facebook page, because we knew that that would reach our families, and we knew that would reach our community partners as well. So Christ Episcopal is one community partner. We have several that I don't know if I would say rely, but I think appreciate the messages of the 7 habits and how that helps them grow as an organization. So that's something that we wanted to be able to provide not only to our families, but to our community partners. And then we also recorded some lead time lessons and gave kids access, an opportunity to hear about how their teachers were applying leadership and things that they could do in their home to use the habits that they've been learning at Kenwood to help them with their optional learning activities, or to help them, interacting and being nice to their families that they're now spending more time with. So that was what we did in the spring. And of course, when we were designing those things in the spring, I think it was always a thought in our mind that we could still be here again in the fall. But now we actually are here in the fall, and it's very much a reality that we want to ensure that we are continuing to provide opportunity and access to not only academics, but to our leadership theme, because the Leader in Me is also a CASEL approved curriculum, which is CASEL created these standards for social, emotional, and behavioral supports for kids. So all schools in our elementary and middle schools and our high school, I'm unaware of I can't speak to the curriculum that they adopted, but every kid, pre-K through 12, will have access to social emotional learning when they go back to school. And that's going to be a really critical component to ensuring that, that we have that level of safe, supportive, and collaborative culture. So the social emotional learning, that's not going to go away whether kids are remote or whether kids are face-to-face. That's going to be even more important. And we have been working with our core team from Kenwood. We call it our Student Leadership Action Team, and they're the ones that design our leadership units of study to ensure that whether kids are physically in our building or whether they choose that remote option, that they're going to have access to the Leader in Me and to that social emotional learning component. So of course it will look a little bit different, but we are adjusting and making plans so that no matter what option parents choose, they're not losing out on that really critical component of social emotional learning. Other things that will look different as we start our school year are our community outreach opportunities. That's going to be kind of, I don't want to say it's on pause, but it's just going to look a little different. So leader lunches might be remote. It's not that we can't do remote learning and interact with community partners. It's just that that's going to look a little bit differently. And another thing that I wanted to speak about with our remote learning in Cedar Rapids, I'm just so proud of the team of leaders that put together that remote learning option, because it's so thoughtful and it's very unique than anything I've heard about, where it's actual Cedar Rapids teachers designing instruction for Cedar Rapids learners using curriculum that using our primary resources. So we say that the standards are our curriculum, but we have these primary resources that support the teaching of the curriculum. And a very beautiful thing about the option that Cedar Rapids came up with that I haven't seen in a lot of places, is just so unique, is that when kids do make the transition back, there's going to be this like more leveled playing field, because the kids who are choosing to learn remotely were learning from Cedar Rapids teachers using the Cedar Rapids units of study, using the Cedar Rapids primary resources. And our director of teaching and learning, John Rice, would describe it as the seamless transition back and forth. So if a class does need to be quarantined, or that it's not like you're going, okay, wait a minute, like we weren't learning that last week. So it's just the design of that is amazing, and it's so thoughtful, and I'm so proud of to be able to say that the remote learning is an option that it's going to be extremely meaningful learning that kids are going to be able to take and transfer back into that face-to-face setting. And that is just so unique.
Well, I think we can start asking questions. Thank you very much, Jillian and Jennifer. That was really enlightening. We've all been wondering what's going on, and so it's nice to find out. So Hal, I noticed you posted some comments in the chat. Would you like to lead off with some questions? And in the meantime, if you have a question, please raise your hand under the participants icon and unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you both, Jennifer and Jillian. Very informative. I was writing my questions as you were speaking, Jennifer, because I was sure by the time you finished, I'd forgotten the details. And part of what you answered it, Jillian. One of my questions is, practically, everybody gets a jetpack and a device. Who funds the monthly payment? Is that all school system?
Yes.
Okay.
The school system will be, yeah. Well, if people have a home, if they already have a Wi-Fi, if they already have a hotspot or a connectivity, it would just be, it's no additional usage. If people get into a situation where it is additional usage, I would encourage them to elevate that to their building, and we'll address it as we come across it. But again, we do have all those remote hotspots that we purchased for families that do not have that capability currently.
Right, but question being is, if the cost falls back to the family and they can't afford it, obviously they can't follow with remote. So that's why I was wondering if fees would.
We will, yep, nope, we're going to ensure remote learning. We're absolutely going to do whatever we can to ensure remote learning. We need to. That's part of our mission, right?
Excellent. And then the other question I had was, not only COVID, but the George Floyd murder has also, ripped the skirts off of the table to show the disparities in our society. So how do we make sure that, Wellington Heights is as well taken care of as, the Christ Church neighborhood?
So communication's been a little more difficult with some of our families. We've taken multiple outlets for communication to kind of gather need and understand need. So we've done phone, we've done computer, we've done mailing, direct mailings. We've done on-site communications. So for Wellington Heights, that would be like Johnson STEAM Academy. They have been a meal distribution site all throughout the spring and the summer. And they're also a registration site. So we will continue to assess need and address it as we become aware. We think we have a pretty good idea of where need is based on surveys and information that we've gathered to this point, and that enabled us to order the devices that we ordered so that all of our students are one-to-one, and go ahead and provide those hotspots for students that would need them. Again, additionally, if there are students in Wellington Heights that are choosing remote, if they're elementary students, they've got that, they have a scheduled class time every day. We'll be sure, and social emotional learning, as Jillian had said, is very important, and will be streamed in and will be part of also interactions in curriculum. We're going to make sure that we've got teachers reaching out to students that are remote or in person, making sure that we're still able to make those meaningful connections and relationships.
Okay.
I would just add one thing to that. Like when sometimes I take for granted that, like, of course you wouldn't know that we're doing this because you're not sitting at the table when this is happening. But another thing that's so fantastic about our district's approach to this is every school created this communication type of plan. And what we did was we learned every family's preferred communication method. And then as a school, we would delegate that out to our grade level teams. So at KLA, our grade level teams met once a week, and the very first agenda item after how are you doing was, how are our families? Who haven't you heard from? Who do we need to reach out to? And I'm getting goosebumps right now when I talk about this, because it's not just like the Kenwood staff only cares about the Kenwood kids. It's like, we would be able to reach out to somebody at Arthur to say, like, you saw this person pick up a meal today. Okay, we know they're okay. We know that, and the power of that summer and spring meal distribution was like, we knew that our families were being taken care of, and it was just another access point so that we could communicate with them. And that was really powerful. And I don't imagine that would go away. I think that we will continue to ensure that that our families that aren't with us face to face, that we're doing the same thing and checking in with them.
Great.
Thank you.
It looks like we have questions from Kay Johnell, Nancy Brown, Robin Cash, and Libby Slappy. So Kay, why don't you unmute yourself and you'll have the next question, please.
My question was, am I unmuted? Okay.
Yes.
My question is about the high school instruction on the days that they are learning remote. For example, my grandson is Monday, Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, is his remote instruction synchronized with the classroom?
So, I'm not sure if it's synchronized with the classroom. I do know that Monday, Tuesday, they will take 4 classes. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, they take 4 different classes. So they're able to hit all of their credits. I'm not sure if that's a really good question. I'm not sure if that is synchronous or if that is, I don't know. I can ask. Sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
That's okay.
If they're remote, if it's synchronous. I'm assuming it is because it's all aligned with in that synchronous stream. It's not aligned with the CVA. I don't know. I'll check. I don't know.
So a student's progress then is going to be assessed in the same way with completion of projects or assignments and assessments.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Nancy Brown, you need to unmute yourself for your question, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Brown, and I first of all want to thank Charles. This is awesome. This is so informative and important.
Thank Kate, she put it together.
All right, Kate, good for you. Number one, I want to sympathize with Jennifer with the idea of the homeroom teacher teaching all the courses. As a former English teacher, I hate the idea of myself trying to step into a social studies even, but I'm sure that it'll all be worked out. Okay, my main question is, I'm not familiar with the term social and emotional learning. Could you just briefly explain what that is?
Jillian, do you want to take that one?
Sure.
You probably have more application. Mine is really broad.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start from the kids come to school, right? And they learn how to read. So when they don't know how to read, we don't get mad at them. We teach them. So social emotional learning is kind of it's really along the ideas of let's continue to talk to kids about things like self-awareness, things about critical thinking. Let's teach kids about regulation of their emotions and knowing when they're feeling something and giving them the tools to be able to de-escalate or to communicate with people. So we're teaching them those skills instead of assuming that they come with those. We're teaching them just like we would teach any other academic content. If kids are falling behind in reading, then what we would do is we would provide them more support. We wouldn't get upset with them or have them go to the office. So that's the same approach with social emotional learning. So when kids are still showing that they, through behavior or interactions, that they are not understanding or learning those skills right now, then what they would do is have access to more support, whether that's in small groups, whether that's in connection with a student engagement specialist. So what that is giving them the opportunity for more instruction, just like we would teach any academic subject. So it's really taking those soft skills and that social emotional learning and treating it like a core content area and providing opportunities for kids to practice and for kids to have extra support when they need it. And there are social emotional learning standards, the Iowa core curriculums. They're called CASEL competencies. And I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but they're things like social or self-awareness, self-management, about interacting with others and communicating. So those standards that are recognized by the Iowa Core, the primary resource that Cedar Rapids has purchased is those social emotional competencies.
Great. Thank you, Jillian.
Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Robin Cash has a question. Robin, would you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you, Charles. actually have a couple of concerns. The first one involves reading. I think most of the studies I'm aware of emphasize reading in the first 3 grades, and that if you don't get it by grade 3, then you tend to fall behind the rest of your students. And I wonder if, under the difficult conditions that the district is facing, if extra resources will be able to be directed to younger children, kindergarten, first, second, third grade children, to be sure that they are adequately equipped as readers, so they'll be able to go on and participate fully. And then I'd like to ask another question as well. Do you want me to do that now? Do you want me to get them both out, or you want to have somebody respond to that?
Go ahead and
first?
ask your next question. And we'll go ahead and get it.
The other has to do with the emotional social learning. As I understood Jillian to say, this is going to be treated like a content area. And most of the studies that I'm aware of suggest that emotional and social learning is primarily from parents and peers, and that it is more experience-based than content-based, that it's not the sort of thing that you can lecture somebody about as you would a content area. So I wonder about how that's being approached, and if that is really a good use of resources.
Sure. So maybe I could talk a little bit about that second part of your question with social and emotional learning. And absolutely, parents and family are teachers as well, right? They're our kids' first teacher. So those types of things are really critical as well. They're in the curriculum that we're using. There are, if you think of it more as a structure, so I'm just going to walk through an example of what an elementary lesson might look like. It is gathering kids together at the beginning of the day and making sure that all kids feel welcomed. So there's this building this sense of community and making sure that all kids' voices are welcome to the table, and that they get to greet each other. And so like soft skills of greeting each other in the morning and other things like that will occur during this morning circle time. And then there is time for direct lessons. So it's not the teacher would be just talking at the kids for a long time. They would get to learn little bits and be able to practice with their peers. They interact with a idea or a concept throughout the week. And there are parent components that will go home so that kids can teach their families what they're learning about and practice with their families. And the final component of that daily instruction is that there's a closing circle at the end of the day too. So kids can reflect on their day. Kids can reflect on how they've applied that social emotional learning concept throughout the rest of their day. So sometimes I think our mental model is we think about what did learning look like when we were in school. And so maybe our experience is that someone just talked at us the whole time. And that we've really tried to shift away from that and know that kids learn by doing. So with that social emotional concept, we treat it like a core content area, and that it's just as important, and that there should be standards and we should design intentional learning around it. But the learning that kids experience is very much interactive, and they get to practice that and reflect on that with their peers.
Okay. Jennifer, would you like to address the first part of Robin's question?
Sure.
About reading?
Sure. Yes. As always, Robin, that's a great question. I do not have the exact answer. I've written it in my notes. We have a work session on Tuesday. I'll elevate at that time. I don't know if there's additional support for K through 3 reading. I do know, however, that all grades will go through like an assessment, kind of a gap assessment when we start in the fall, to kind of look and see what that learning loss was that happened through spring, with us stopping on March 13th, and then through summer. So that gap assessment should be able to give us an idea, give instructors, give teachers an idea of where they need to start to make sure that all of our lovely learners are on the same page.
Great. Thank you.
And another thing about elementary reading, which our district has been working really hard to get all of our teachers through a specific training called letters training, and it's really about phonics and how the brain learns to read. And I will sound like a goof if I try to explain it, because I am not by trade a literacy teacher. But the things that that I see in the elementary classrooms are things that that I don't know that I've seen before. And when we talk about masks and face shields, how critical it is for young readers to be seeing letter formations in the mouth. And so I think that's another reason why the face shields are going to be really important in our elementary kids, so that when they are 6 feet away, they could take their mask off, keep their face shield on, and be able to watch their teacher and to mimic those letter formations. We have kind of, they're not called pandemic standards, but we have our standards, right? Zillion things that you want kids to learn. And then we narrow it down to these priority standards, which are like the most important things. And it doesn't mean we don't teach the other things, but we highlight those. And then we kind of have gone even further, and they're like priority standards, that because we're in this pandemic, which won't last forever, but we need to adjust. We're thinking of what are the absolute critical things that kids need to practice and do every day, person or online, so that we are giving them access to reading, and that we're building their reading stamina. Those assessments that Jennifer mentioned, those will continue, and our teachers of young readers have a really good snapshot every week of where kids are and how they're improving, and that's through a statewide assessment portal. And so they will continue that and continue to address kids' needs.
Great. I think we have a couple more questions. Well, first Libby and then Eileen. Libby, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I unmuted. I'm wondering how or when will the teachers learn who's going to be in person in their class and who's going to be remote?
That's a really excellent question. Thank you for that, Libby. So a lot of that is going to depend on when families are registering and they're making their selection of the mode of instruction that they would prefer. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle. We need to understand where numbers are at. We need to understand. We'll get some initial surveys back where preferences for parents and for teachers, how they feel about. There's a preference question in there, and then there's a like, how do you feel about this method or this method? I'm confident. I'm not sure. So we have some data that's going to be coming in on that. As I'm not sure the exact date on when teachers are going to get their class list. Again, this is a draft. What we're talking about right now, the final return to learn should come out this week. At that point, then parents will be asked to indicate their preference, and then we're just going to have to go from there. So I would say, I'm guessing the second week in August, but that's a guess. Again, we have to have some more indications before that happens.
Okay. Eileen, go ahead, please.
Hi. Well, I am deeply impressed with the level of planning and nuance and care for various needs that I'm hearing. I also really had a jolt, and I understood that you said this wasn't an absolute number and ratio, and that you're going to have to see what the real ratio was. But when I heard 20-1, and I'm not sure if that meant 20 adult staff to 20 students to 1 adult staff in the building at a time, or I pictured 20 kids and one teacher, and at the primary level, I can't, I understand that's a goal for you. You're not even, can't promise it, and you have the resources, or we all have the resources that are there. But is it really possible to have safe among primary school kids with those kinds of numbers? I wonder whether it's possible, just that if, depending on how it all shakes out, might it possibly even be a better ratio? I mean, better in this case would probably be a smaller number than 20-1. Is that on the table? But while I would hope so, I also acknowledge concerns, even with the excellent social and emotional learning that's going on. Sometimes small groups have problematic group dynamics that are harder to address, and anything that you, that level, I'd also be interested in hearing. Thanks so much, and I'll remute.
So the 20-1 is, again, it's a goal. We're not going to be able to really understand until we get string for their preference. I would hope personally, not on behalf of the board, but on behalf of myself, that as many families that are able to choose remote learning and make it work in their household, that they would, because that's going to reduce our numbers in buildings, and it's safer for staff and students. I don't know if 20-1 is, that's the goal. I know that we'll be doing some creative placement of staff. When I say we, I mean the districts. That's not something that I would do. It's not a policy point. But there's discussion about creative placement of staff so that that number is achieved, so that we're not over 20-1. And again, everyone will be required when in buildings to wear either a mask or a shield or both. So hopefully that will help with the social distancing. I don't know if the 6 feet is possible, but that double barrier should really add an extra layer of safety.
And we're seeing some initial, parents have been asked their what they're thinking right now, and then they'll have an opportunity to say like their final choice. And right now, the preliminary data that's coming through is showing us that it's about a third, and a third. So about a third of families right now believe that they will choose that remote learning. About a third of families say, I think I'm going to send my kids to school, and about a third of families say they're still unsure. At that 1/3, if 1/3 stayed home, I believe that we would achieve that 20-1 ratio across all. And then in many grade levels, it would be even lower, because our district invests in class sizes. Although it might not be experienced the same way across the board, they do invest in lower class sizes. So then our primary grades would be even below that 20-1 ratio.
Okay.
I hope so. Thanks.
Unfortunately, we've reached the end of our hour. I had several questions I wanted to ask myself, just so we can learn more about it, but you have done a wonderful job. Thank you so much, Jillian and Jennifer, and thank what you're doing for our community, because I know it's not easy, especially right now when you're getting all of the focus, really. But we wish you the best, and we will continue to work with KLA and the Cedar Rapids School District to help where we can as a church. So before I end, I just wanted to thank the people that helped organize this entire series. Kate did a really wonderful job with the nonprofits. Melody helped organize several speakers, and Hal had a lot of great ideas that fed into this. And so we just really want to thank you for joining us, and we hope that this has been helpful to you. And we also wish you would continue learning with us on September 7th and worship at Christ Episcopal Church on YouTube, and attend our coffee hour this morning at 11. I believe Libby put those both in the chat for you. So before I end this session, thank you and God bless all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Charles, for all the work that you
Thanks, Charles.
and
It's really
other
good.
organizers as well.